Hey guys, so first things first, just to answer the title, no, it shouldn't, but I do think that we can frame the kind of argument in that way, because as I've already talked about, there are kind of multiple different camps, or I suppose a spectrum of criteria on which you can judge whether a weapon should be whitelisted or not, with the two extremes being you either want weapons to be banned unless they provide some positive value to the format, or you want weapons to only be banned if they have proven to be a big issue, right? When I say extremes, I don't mean these are unreasonable opinions. I think they are both very much rooted in reason, and they're logically consistent. It's just a matter of preference for what you prefer. And there are, sliders. There's different degrees to each of them. But when it comes to the Crusader's crossbow, which I suppose I haven't actually said aloud is the weapon we're talking about today, there is very much some negatives that the weapon brings. So unlike a weapon such as, for example, the, what's it called? Like the reserve shooter, for instance, which doesn't really bring any positive value to the game outside of saying that you just have one fewer weapon banned. And the negative is, of course, that it completely shuts down a very fun and engaging strategy, that being just soldier bombs in general, which are, a major stalemate breaker, major space taker, just very engaging and interesting mechanic. So of course, you don't see any competitive players complaining about the reserve shooter being banned or wanting it unbanned like you do for many other weapons that do provide some form of positive value. But when the crossbow was released, and kind of for a long time thereafter, people did legitimately want this banned. Now, of course, it was always a vocal minority, because I don't think the crossbow was ever banned. But yeah, you can look at old TFTV threads like a decade ago, which, isn't it insane that not only people have been playing sixes for over a decade, but the crossbow has been in the game for over a decade. It's crazy. But there are actual legitimate criticisms of the way the crossbow changes the game, because it is arguably one of the most important unlocks in the entire game. Where I've talked about this when I talk about medic loadouts, but when the whitelist is down, when the item servers are down and you're forced to just run full stock, the two most impacted classes are, of course, medic with the lack of crossbow, and soldier with the lack of gunboats. A lot of the time you'd rather have the crossbow than the gunboats. And the crossbow absolutely changes everything, because, you equip gunboats and sure, it enables a different style of play. It enables soldier to focus in more on the mobility aspect of the class, which is usually very powerful and very positive, which is why soldiers run the gunboats. But the crossbow doesn't focus in on a talent that medic already has, and it in fact just gives medic a completely new option, unlike any other primary. So yeah, crossbow is very, very good, but there are certainly, and I keep alluding to, arguments against the crossbow as a healthy metagame presence. So let's just talk about those real quick, because we have to look first at kind of what the game looks like without the crossbow. And of course, as you can see, I missed that one. But you're going to just see throughout this entire demo crossbow being used very liberally, because it costs nothing to just, it costs very little to switch to and shoot, right? As long as you're hitting your crossbow. There are certain times where you might prefer to just hard build, because, switching off of your medigun just to shoot someone with a bow and switching back, in some cases it's going to make you miss out on like an extra 4-ish%. I just made that number off the top of my head, but low single-digit % of Uber building, which can make the difference. Just draw my scout there. It's unfortunate. Oh, but my demo is goading up. So there are cases where you don't want to be shooting bows. And actually, if a medic is excessively spamming bows in a team fight, then if you key into that, you can absolutely play the like 10 some ad that you're going to get as a result. So anyway, with that in mind, do I live? No, I just hit an awful surf and got stuck in the corner. With that in mind, in most circumstances, it's totally fine to just whip out a bow and bow someone, because as long as someone on your team is not full HP, then you're going to get more value out of the crossbow than you would out of continuing to beam people. And of course, it's always more complicated than I put it out to be, because you can, of course, just, like, maybe there's someone that really needs to get beamed and you don't want to be bowing someone across the map. But then again, bowing that person that needs to get beamed would heal them faster. So yeah, as long as you're hitting your bows, they reload passively, so you may as well just be ripping them. But anyway, without crossbows, and in a meta without crossbows, the game is, of course, much slower because, you know, the big thing being soldiers, of course, are extremely bowable classes, and classes that you want to bow a lot. Because they just have that high health pool, bowing them is more efficient than beaming them. And they're also taking a lot of damage, because soldier, as a high health pool, high mobility class, usually trades health for some form of value, whether that be health for space, whether that be health for like holding a door or something, or health for damage on another player, stuff like that. So soldiers are consistently trading down their health for some form of value, so they need to get healed back up. And usually, in the modern TF2 metagame, you aim to really only buff your soldiers when you need to, whether they're about to sack, or there's just no one else to heal, or they're about to make space, stuff like that. When you're anticipating that your soldier is about to need a bunch of health, then you can buff them. But for everything else, they kind of sustain off of health packs and arrows. So, as a result, if you can't arrow your soldiers, suddenly the game is much slower, right? And of course, you know, people complain about when the game is slow a lot. So why am I framing this as a positive? Well, it's not so much slower for slowness' sake, but rather players, their health sticks more. Meaning, if you do a ton of damage to a team, you know that's not getting fully healed off in like 3 bows, right? Like it is today. Meaning, if you do a lot of damage on a mid-fight, for instance, then you can feasibly push into the next point off the fact that the other team is very weak. And pushing off of damage was damage was one of the kind of major advantages, like picks and like Uberad. And you could push off of the fact that you dealt a lot of damage to the other team, and you know they can't heal that fully. But with the crossbow, that just no longer exists. And there are actual, like, there's legitimate criticism there. If you are very used to being able to play off of damage, which, to be fair, is it's a pretty high level and tactical thing to do. Because not only do you kind of need to understand how much damage is being dealt, but you need to be a very fast team to be able to follow up on something like that. And usually being coordinated and fast is something that's quite difficult. So that rewards high-level play, and that rewards skillful play, is being able to push off of damage. So you certainly miss out on something like that with the crossbow, which is an actual downside to it in metagame terms. Another thing as well in the micro sense is that even in a small, like a 1v1 type of fight, or even a focus fire situation where one player is maybe out of position and maybe kind of deserve to die for it, if their medic just hits a really clutch bow, then what am I doing? If a medic hits a really clutch bow, then that player can just survive. And I talked about this, or alluded to this as well, in the unlocks video. You can notice I said a lot about the crossbow then, but I figured it warranted its own video because it is that good. So what am I? Man, my train of thought is faltering. Oh no. Oh wait, I can just press G. Okay. So we were talking about people getting salvaged in 1v1s. Yeah. It's not uncommon for, you know, a comm to be like, oh, this person's so rolled, yada yada. And then when someone's about to follow up on it, it's like, oh, they just get bowed and they're fine. So bows can absolutely bail people out that arguably deserve to get punished for their mistakes, right? And these are legit criticisms. It's frustrating to think that you like deserve a kill on someone, but suddenly you just don't because their medic bailed them out. Which, yeah, some people didn't like that. Now, the kind of ban the crossbow threads used to happen like every other year, or every year even, way back when. And they have since stopped. There is no strong movement or push to ban this thing. It is very much a staple of... I mean, it's always been a staple of... Well, not always. And I think it didn't used to passively reload, and some people did use syringe guns instead. Not as in stock, but some other options. But nowadays, very much not the case, and the crossbow is at no risk. Don't you fret. But what was the point I was making with this? I honestly don't remember. Again, kind of scatterbrained right now. But we were going to talk about downsides of the crossbow. Back when people kind of wanted it banned. Yeah, it's not in danger of getting banned, of course. But there's legit criticism there. However, let's talk about the positives. Because I did mention earlier that I was going to frame it in kind of those two extremes scenarios where, yes, there are problematic elements to the crossbow. That much is for sure. But overall, it is preserved because it is a quite positive force in the metagame as well. For a couple of reasons. I don't know why my console just opened. For a couple of reasons. One is that it does increase the pace of the game. So while you might not be able to realistically push off of damage anymore, you can certainly just be a faster team, and usually a faster pace is nice. Being able to quickly bow a soldier and then have him ready to bomb again makes the game a lot faster and a lot more fluid, which a lot of people do enjoy. So again, there's some trade-off there where, you know, on one hand you have a more methodical style of play, but on the other you can get faster paced fights where team coordination matters a lot and being able to pace things well matters a lot. And the crossbow enables that kind of play, which is certainly positive for many. And the other one, and the big reason why the crossbow will never be banned, is that it makes medic fun to play. Because in all the examples I was mentioning earlier, where, like, you know, a player that's out of position can kind of just die because their medic hit a clutch bow. While that's certainly a downside in some sense for, like, the players fighting that guy who gets bailed out, it's an absolute upside for the medic who gets to just save a teammate through their own skill, really. And sure, an unlock enables that, but I don't know why my taunt, like, glowing whatever is here. It's kind of obnoxious. But a medic with a skillful bow can save someone, and while that is a downside or might suck for the other people, it is really, really enjoyable and really rewarding as a medic to do that. So it makes medic way more fun to play. And in general, and this is something I talked about in, I think the unlock or the whitelist video, something like that. I don't recall where, but I'll repeat myself briefly here. Making medic fun to play is certainly a consideration for Six's players, because at pretty much every level, in competitive play between multiple formats as well as casual play, medic is oftentimes a less desirable class. There are absolutely players who love playing medic, and, you know, medic's certainly enjoyable. Don't get me wrong, I like playing medic for that matter as well, but it's overall, it's not a fragging class, and killing people is very fun, and a lot of the time it's kind of a thankless job, especially when you don't have, like, responsible teammates playing around you, stuff like this, yada yada. So in general, it's harder to find someone willing to play medic than some other classes. In competitive play, it's not uncommon for teams to try and form, and you know, it gets around time where like you need to get a medic, and suddenly like you just can't fill out rosters because there just aren't medic options, which is unfortunate. And a lot of the time as well, you'll see players off like a friend team where it's just a group of friends playing a team. You know, someone's on medic duty. Like when they're playing an off-class season, someone is going to be off-classing to medic because every team needs a medic, of course. But medic players can be hard to come by. So making medic more fun to play is absolutely a consideration. And that's a consideration to some degree for weapon bans. But it's the major consideration for the crossbow. Because imagine playing medic without the crossbow. How boring is that? Like being able to actually make decisions about what weapon to have out when, who to bow and when, feeling out the pace of a fight, being able to bow players before they even necessarily need a bow. All these things are just so engaging and make the class so much more interesting that absolutely the crossbow brings a huge benefit to the table. So yeah, I think that's probably all I have to talk about. There have been actual people with legitimate criticism wanting the crossbow removed because it does certainly eliminate some of the some skillful elements of the game with regards to what you can and can't push off of, how much losing a fight punishes players, how much players are punished in general with regards to their health, and all of these, again, real criticism and totally valid. The crossbow in some senses does take away from the game from a metagame perspective, but it just brings so many more positives, and the big one just being making, you know, a sixth of the team, that being the medic class, actually fun to play, rather than just using beams and just using the medigun, and the only time you have to think is when it comes time to like use an Uber. No, it just makes the class way more enjoyable, way better overall, and as a result, it will never get banned. And yeah, people certainly enjoy the crossbow now, but I figured I may as well talk about it, because unlike the case of some other weapons, like you can say, for example, the gunboats serves as an example of like there has never been a push to ban the gunboats, because unlike the case of the crossbow, the gunboats really don't detract from the format in any way, really. There's no one who wants soldiers to take the full rocket jump damage and be forced to equip shotguns usually. Like people generally accept that that is just a fundamental, like, good unlock. But the crossbow does have some downsides that you have to weigh, which is a little bit different. So yeah, that's all I have to talk about the crossbow. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see what happens with this Uber. We killed a medic. Is my post positioning good? My post positioning is good. I'm able to get out. I miss a bow on my demo. I hit a bow on my scout. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, I die. We probably should have gotten out, but I was alone. Whatever. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.